Richard. Okay, so in order to beat the time, we're going to continue from where we left off on Monday. 1 minute, let's see. On Monday, we looked at the current legislations. There were wonderful presentations by students, and that was helpful as we learned from one another. We looked at all these legislations and regulations, 8 of them, and to answer the question, you're supposed to summarize a minimum of 5, any 5 of these, and that answers the question appropriately. We also started looking at the principles of deprivation of liberty, the principles that govern or that form the basis of taking a service user or an individual's rights and freedom legally, the principles that govern how that is done. We look at an example in the case between HL and the United Kingdom, the case that went to court, and the European Court of Human Rights had to make a decision on it. We watched that video, and then we also looked at the details. So this link right here on the PowerPoint presentation helps you to actually follow that case. Then we also looked at the Article 5 of the European Convention of Human Rights. The whole European Convention of Human Rights has been sent to you as a document, but you just need to focus on Article 5, which helps answer this question. Then we also, as you can see from the resources sent and our previous lesson as well, the difference between deprivation and restriction upon liberty. So deprivation is where you are depriving the person. Restriction, the person has their rights, just that there are restrictions laid on it where risk factors are involved and consent. Then before these come into action, there must be authorization. And so we have the standard authorization, and then we have the urgent authorization. The urgent authorization is what is approached when there are risks and there is urgency, that things should be done urgently in order to safeguard either the individual or other people in relation to the issue at stake. So if it is standard authorization, you can understand that and appreciate that the process may take, a normal period. However, with the urgent authorization, it will be fast-tracked. So then we also have referral processes to supervisory bodies. Now, referrals must be made to appropriate professionals who need to ensure that the due diligence is followed before ensuring that the processes are also monitored accordingly. Now, Supreme Court ruling on Cheshire West, and which is subsequent acid test. That is another case, just like the HL versus United Kingdom case, and the Bonwood judgment. That is another one that it's very helpful that you look at. And so you can Google that, you can check on that also on YouTube and watch that and take notes on that. Okay. Any question before we continue? Right. So if there is no question, much of these we have covered already in terms of the background to the Mental Capacity Act 2005, which is an act of the United Kingdom Parliament passed on the 7th of April 2005. But even though it was passed as an act of Parliament, it didn't come into force. It didn't become operational until 2007. It became operational as a legislation of the land in the year 2007. The primary purpose of it is to provide legal framework, that is a law, the confines of the law, for acting and making decisions on behalf of adults, service users who lack capacity to make particular decisions for themselves. One, about their own care, and also about decisions that are made concerning the other life factors. So basically, this is the background of the act. And whatever you are writing, make sure you explain what it means before you continue. We covered the 5 key principles. That is also part of the questions you'll be answering on your assignment. And Richard made a presentation on the 5 key principles. We don't have Richard here today. We don't have Flora here today. I just hope they are okay. Then, so detailed information about the principles, you read them. You can use these to as helpful resource for your assignment, but just make sure you reference it accordingly, okay? So you are not caught in the trap of plagiarism. Best interest, this is principle 4 and principle 5. Then another question you have is the 2-stage test. So we call it the 2-stage functional test of capacity as to whether the person has capacity. You have to follow these 2 stages and tick those boxes before it is confirmed through assessment that the person doesn't have capacity and cannot make decisions for themselves, for which reason an attorney has to be contacted. And so this is the 2 stages continued. I think by now everyone understands that we talk about the fact that the person has to understand the information given. The person must be able to keep or retain the information. The person must weigh the information available to them to be able to make a decision to see what the pros are, what the cons are, the advantages and disadvantages. The person must be able to communicate the decision either verbally or non-verbally, or using sign language or any other means. I spoke about some of these the other day. I gave examples. Even a simple muscle movement, the person can hold or squeeze the hand or blink the eye. And these are all things that we use in the hospital or health and social care settings where people can consent to something, whether they are saying yes or no. A situation where the person can hear, but the person cannot speak, you will tell them what you want them to do. So for example, if you mean yes, Susan, if you mean yes, can you give me thumbs up? So the person can hear you, cannot speak, but the person can give you a thumbs up. In a situation where the person has stroke, so stroke sometimes affects the movement of the hands and other things, and even speech, and the person cannot use the hand or give you thumbs up or any other thing. Sometimes they can use their eye or facial expression, okay? Or sometimes, even though they cannot move the hand basically, but they can give you a squeeze, a slight squeeze. Okay, if you mean yes, can you squeeze my finger? They can squeeze your finger if they mean yes. If they don't mean yes, they will not squeeze your finger. So these are all communication skills that need to be employed. When we come to talking about communication skills, we'll talk much more about those. So these are, that's the 2-stage, part of the 2-stage functional test. Now, who should assess capacity? We talked much about that, but we're going to cover a little bit on that today. Who has the responsibility to assess capacity? Healthcare professionals must be careful that the right professionals are available to assess capacity. So anyone caring for or supporting a person or an individual who may lack capacity could be involved in assessing capacity by following the two-stage test. The Mental Capacity Act, which is MCA, is designed to empower those in health and social care as professionals to do capacity assessment themselves, rather than rely on experts as a testing by psychiatrists or psychologists. That's good professional training, which is also very key. So even though you could do it, you have to make sure you are trained to do it and make sure you follow, the principles accordingly and ensure that you are doing what is in the best interest of the service user. However, in cases involving complex and major decisions, please take note, complex and major decisions, you need to get a professional opinion. So this could be a GP or other specialists like consultants or psychiatrists or psychologists to be involved in the process because they have the requisite qualification to do that. Very important. So what are the roles and responsibilities of the decision makers? Any questions so far, please? If you have a question, you can stop me and ask your question. Any question? Okay, so Lalita sent a message. Right, thank you, Lalita. Right, so the roles and responsibilities of the decision makers after assessment is, after capacity is assessed. So the advocacy service standards and codes of practice must be followed in making the decisions. So it is a relevant guide as to ensuring that the necessary boxes are ticked, capacity is assessed before decisions are made. And the decisions should be made in consultation with the attorneys and also making sure that the decisions are in line with the best interest of the service user. It's very, very important. And that is where, when the independent mental capacity advocacy services are involved, we ensure that they also follow the limits and the boundaries that are set for them. It's important. Then the rights and the powers of the independent mental capacity mental capacity advocacy services must also be employed to ensure that there is no arbitrary use of powers there. Then we have instructed and non-instructed advocacy. This is where we talk about the next of kin. So the next of kin is the uninstructed advocacy, especially in terms of making decisions on behalf of the individual. So where we have the next of kin acting, if it has not come to, there are other areas I'm going to show. If it doesn't come there, okay, Richard said he had low battery. Are you back in? All right.
Yes, please bear with me.
Okay, that's fine. All right, Flora, welcome. Right, so there are other areas we looked at the other day in relation to finance, property, and other things. When those things come into the picture, a next of kin could not take a decision on behalf of the individual. It has to go to people who have attorney, as instructed legally to take decision on behalf of the individual. And where it is required, referrals must be made accordingly. And so as a health and social care professional, you need to understand all of these processes in order to ensure that if you are working with a service user who may need to resort to this, you are not new to it, and you will follow your workplace policy and procedures accordingly and ensure that you do the right thing, just so you don't find yourself on the wrong side of the law when things go wrong. right? We talked about best interest decisions and best interest principles in our previous lesson, but we're going to cover some parts of it again today. So when we talk about best interest decisions, we are talking about decisions that are made in consideration of one, the wishes, the likes, and the preferences of the individual. What are the wishes of the individual when the person had capacity? What are the likes of the individual when they have capacity? What are their interests and wishes when they have capacity? What is included in their will, if they have a will? If they have things that have to do with, what is included in their will? So sometimes the will also come into play. Then there is another thing called advanced decisions. Advanced decision, I explained it the other day, are decisions that an individual makes ahead of lacking capacity. So the person is not making the decision because they think or know that they will lack capacity when they know. It is just helpful to make such decisions down, because along the journey of life, you may never know when things will go wrong, when you will lose your voice, or you lose your hearing, or you lose sight, or you may not be able to respond. So advanced decisions are made. Some of the advanced decisions made have to do with ethical issues. Ethical issues, some may relate to blood transfusion. You may not think blood transfusion is an ethical issue unless maybe it has to do with somebody's faith or religion. For example, the people who are categorized under the JW, like Jehovah's Witnesses, generally don't subscribe to blood transfusion. So then, even if someone who identifies as a Jehovah's Witness takes ill and finds themselves in a hospital, and the medical team says, now, this person's condition requires blood, so we have to do some blood transfusion in order to save the person's life. And the person, for faith reasons, says, no, my religious belief does not allow me to take blood. And it comes to a stage where the person does not have capacity to make a decision. You have to consult what we call advanced decision, find out if the person has anything called advanced decision. And if the person has advanced decision, it will be stated in the advanced decision whether the person should be given blood or not. Otherwise, next of kin could be contacted. And if the next of kin says, if the person doesn't have advanced decision and the person doesn't have capacity to make a decision, before the doctors or the medical team make a decision in the best interest of the person's life, they will consult next of kin. And if the next of kin says, okay, I think you should be given blood, in the absence of, please take note of what I'm saying, so conditional, in the absence of advanced decision is a decision the person makes down and says, in the event of a critical health issue, I would not, and my life depends on blood transfusion, I do not consent to being given blood. It is an advanced decision. That decision must be respected. That's the person's wish and preference and interest. But if there is no advanced decision, the next of kin will be consulted. And if the next of kin knows that there is no advanced decision, they can take a decision in the interest of the person. This is where finance and property are not involved. We are talking about health exclusively, for example. However, if the next of kin, there is no one available, the medical team can take a decision. And whatever decision they take must be in the best interest of the person's life. Don't forget, their work, their profession requires to save life. So whatever decision they will take, they have to think about the best interest of the person's life in doing their work. So it is an ethical decision where, for example, faith is involved. Other people's faith does not forbid them taking blood transfusion. Another example is organ transplant. Like someone's heart has failed, and then they can transplant another person's heart. I think 3 weeks ago, someone who received a pig's heart transplant died. It was in the news. So there are other situations where somebody has heart failure, and then there is heart that could be transplanted in the person for the person to live a few more years. If the person doesn't have any advanced decision in place not to receive it, i.e., in a situation of people who identify as Jehovah's Witnesses, then that could be done. However, generally, some religious faiths forbid the practitioners of that faith from receiving organ donation in terms of transplant. So they can't receive kidney transplant, liver transplant, or any of those things, even if their life depends on it. So that's all related to best decisions, best interest decisions. Any question? I've spoken a lot. Maybe there are some questions popping in your mind or contributions you want to make. Any? Before we continue. All right, if there's no question. So the decision makers and the decisions required. So they have to look at the best decision, the best interest of the individual to be able to make the decision. It has to follow the best interest principles. And the decision has to be made in a timely manner in order to save the person's life or to promote their health and well-being. Shouldn't be delayed. Now, the decisions made must be reviewed. The decisions made must be reviewed because let's assume a best interest decision was made for someone in January, and this person is in care. And the decision was made because the person was assessed as lacking capacity. We are now in August, over 6 months. This person has been receiving medical care. It is assumed that the person's health and condition may have changed for the better. Okay? So the person's health must be reviewed. The person's situation must be assessed. The health must be reviewed to ensure that if the person now has capacity, then the person should be consulted to make decisions on other areas of their lives. So the fact that you examine and assess the person in January and you found out the person didn't have capacity doesn't mean the person doesn't have capacity for the rest of their lives. That is not true. That is why there should be regular review of the person's situation, health, and capacity. Hope that is clear, to be on the balanced side. The views of the individual are central to all the decisions that are made. And so it's always very important to ensure that you are considering or taking into consideration the views of the individual in making the decision. And that's why you have to consult things like advanced decision and every other thing that can help you get relevant information on what the person may want, what the person may prefer, what the person may wish to be done for them. It is very important. Then best interest decisions should also consider who to involve in the decision making. So the carers, on Monday I explained who a carer is as different from a care worker. A carer is a family, a friend, a neighbor, or other people who are providing care and support to an individual without being paid for it. Those are the carers. It could be family. So the people who could be involved in making best decisions for individuals or on behalf of individuals could be their carers. Why carers? Because they have been looking after the person. The individual may have told them, have conversations with them, told them, and know what they like and what they don't like. They know their preferences, their wishes, and all of those things. Family and friends. Some friends are more than family in relation to looking after the individual and also ensuring their best interest. And then other professionals who work with the individuals. All of these people could be involved in best interest decisions. Any question? Do we have any question? So these are some of the sources of this information, and I'm going to move quickly to another slide. Okay. Do we have any question? No question? Okay. I'll be looking at some aspects of decision making. Okay. Okay. I'm just opening to what we should be looking at. Okay. Can you see this? All right, so other aspects of involving the individual to make decisions and also ensuring that their opinions and views are considered include the following. Some of the steps that we need to take to enable that the person to be involved in the decision making. Right, so to help the people make decisions for themselves or be involved in the decision making, we know that we have to provide them relevant information, which they should understand. But apart from that, we should also make sure that whatever is communicated to the people is communicated appropriately in a way that they understand. Different things could be included in ensuring that. One of them is to ensure that you are explaining the information in a way that the person can understand, using different methods of communication, both verbal and non-verbal. People who could be helpful in communicating the information to the individual should be used in communicating the information They could be interpreters. They could be translators, where linguistic factors are concerned and involved in terms of language barrier. And they could also be family members if the people feel more comfortable listening to a family member explaining to detail what you are communicating to them. Support workers and care workers could be involved. I already talked about interpreters. We could also use speech and language therapists, especially in situations where probably the individual is a stroke patient or is suffering from stroke or otherwise. Then there could also be advocates. Advocates are people who help convey the views, the wishes, and the opinions of the people and fight for their rights to be upheld. It's also very important to make sure that the individual is at ease, because if people are going through health crisis, probably the time that the information is being presented to them, they are so uncomfortable. Maybe they had a sleepless night. And early in the morning, you are there trying to help them make a decision. In the morning, they may be feeling sleepy. So make sure the person is at ease, or the individual is at ease. These are some of the questions to ask to ensure that the person is at ease and the time that this information is being communicated is appropriate, convenient, and the person is comfortable with it. Shall we have Flora take us through some of the questions we have there? We have 3 questions there. Flora, please. Flora, if you can hear me, you are muted.
Did you want Flora to read?
Yes, please. Is Flora engaged?
I'm going to read.
Okay. On this occasion, I'll allow you to read on behalf of Flora.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Says, making the person feel at ease.
Yes.
Are there particular times of day when the person's understanding is better?
Okay, so that's what I was explaining. In the morning, it's as though the person didn't have enough sleep and so cannot think very well, reason very well. You have to ask that question and consider.
Are there particular locations where the persons feel more at ease?
Yes.
Could a decision be put off to see whether the person can make the decision at a later time when circumstances are right for them?
Very good. Thank you, Richard. So those are some of the questions to ask. Here, what we're talking about is we want to involve the person in making the decision. We want to take the person's opinions, wishes, preferences into consideration. And these are the questions we need to ask. Yeah. Right. Thank you. I think someone is not muted, and so there is some sound coming from the background. If you could kindly check that for us. Thank you very much. Right. So these questions need to be considered, even by the decision makers in involving the individual. Now, so supporting the individual to make the decision. These are some of the questions to be considered. Can anyone else help or support the person to make choices or express a view which will be in the best interest of the individual? And so in considering that question, here are some of the things that you need to think through and explore. There are several ways in which people can be helped and supported to enable them make decisions for themselves. And they may vary depending on the decision to be made. So these are the variations. 1, the decision that is to be made. Number 2, the time scale for making the decision. How urgent is the decision? Should the decision be made within 24 hours? Should the decision be made within a few days? Do we have weeks and months? And don't forget, these are life and health, life and death related situations. In some cases, where there is a lot of time, the person's life is not at risk, it's not critical, there may be flexibility in relation to timescales. Okay. And then you also have to look at the individual circumstances in relation to making the decision. Right? So the Mental Capacity Act applies to a wide range of people with different conditions that may affect their capacity to make particular decisions. And appropriate steps to take may depend on some of the following. Can we have Nina read for us, please, Nina? If you can hear me and you are okay to read.
Yes, Chris.
See you on Monday, Nina.
Hi, actually, I'm sorry for today. Like I'm in the class, but your voice is quite slow in my mobile, and my laptop is not free.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah, so I'm sorry if you called me and I didn't hear you, because I might have not heard you. So I'm just going through the slides and I'm managing today.
Okay, I just called you now. I didn't call you earlier. So I was saying that we missed you on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Lalita told me that Monday class was quite boring without me.
We missed last week, but we have some interesting presentations.
Yeah. So I think today she's not attending.
Yes, so you need to take us through. Sorry, I just changed the. I was trying to move.
Because your voice is still slow, so do you mind like if the other candidates can read today?
Oh, okay, that's fine. You can hear.
Yeah, because your voice is cracking, so might be I haven't heard you when you called me before.
No. I just called you now, so that's fine.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we can excuse you, and then let's have Sarat. We have Sarat here today, so Sarat, are you able to take us through?
Yeah, yes, Chris.
Beautiful. So,
yeah.
Okay.
There are several ways in which people can be helped and supported to enable them to make a decision for them. Is that over?
No,
Which
this
one? 3.2. Okay. The Act applies to a wide range of people with different conditions that may affect their capacity to make particular decision. So the appropriate steps to take will depend on the person's individual circumstance. For example, somebody with learning difficulties may need a different approach to somebody with dementia. The decision the person has to make and the length of time they have to make it. 3.3 significant one-off decisions such as moving house will require different consideration from day-to-day decisions about person's care and welfare. However, the same general process should apply to each decision.
Yes.
3.4 in most cases, only some of the steps described in this chapter will be relevant or appropriate, and list included here is not exhaustive. It's up to the paper where family case, paid case, healthcare staff, or anyone else caring for or supporting an individual to consider what's possible and appropriate in individual cases. In all cases, it is extremely important to find the most effective way of communicating with the person concerned. Good communication is essential for explaining relevant information in an appropriate way and for ensuring that the steps being taken meet an individual's need.
Very good. So you see, all these have to be factored into making that decision and involving the individual in making that decision. And these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind. Right. So the rest of it, I think you can read and follow. I want us to go through the questions again. And as today is our last lesson on this unit, and considering that it is a short unit. Right. Give me a second. Right, so we have only 6 questions for this unit, which are very, very easy and straightforward. All right. So the first question is summarize current legislation, regulation, and course of practice in relation to mental capacity. You are just supposed to summarize it. You're not supposed to write in detail. And you are required to summarize 5 minimum legislations. I gave you 8. Just pick 5 of them and summarize them. That question is answered. Yeah. Number 2, which is 1.2, discuss the principles of deprivation of liberty in the context of your own role. Here you have to relate it to the scenario on which you are writing, which is very important. Just you'll be required to talk about the principles of deprivation, very important, a minimum of 4. Just follow the resources. Then 2.1, evaluate the roles and responsibilities of an independent mental capacity advocate in the context of your own role. We looked at the roles, so you evaluate it and look at, you make an evaluation, look at the advantages, the disadvantages, the strengths, and the areas of development of the IMCA. Then explain best interest decisions in the Mental Capacity Act, much of what we talk about today, and also in our previous unit. Explain it. What is best interest decision related to the definition of the act? And then 3.1, reflect on processes applied in own service when working with individuals who lack capacity. So when you are working with individuals who lack capacity, some of the things we've just talked about now, how do you work with them? What are some of the processes you follow? And in helping them to ensure that the service they get, the care they get, the decisions that are made for them are in their best interest. Then the last question on this unit is evaluate how your own services, that's your role, the role you play, ensures the safety and the well-being of individuals who lack capacity within adult care. So how you ensure the safety and the well-being of the individuals that you are taking care of. How do you ensure their well-being and their safety? How do you ensure their well-being and their safety? That is where you talk about, you bring in deprivation of liberty and rights. You talk about a little bit of restraint, because if they are posing risk to themselves and to other people, do you think that their freedom and their liberty needs to be withheld in order to ensure that they receive the best care and support that they need to receive? You have to think about all of those. There is something else I want to look at within the next few minutes before I ask you if you have any question. I was talking about safety and well-being. Okay, let's go here. Safety and well-being in our previous lesson. Okay, it's here. All right. Right here. So when we talk about safety and well-being, we are talking about the personal dignity of the individual, the physical health of the individual, the mental health of the individual, emotional well-being of the individual, how we protect the individual from abuse and neglect, how we help them to have control over their day-to-day life, including their care and the support that they receive the way they want it, and how we help them, how we promote their independence by helping them to participate in their day-to-day activities, and also their social and economic well-being, and family and personal relationships, connecting socially. So that question that relates to how you, going back to it, evaluate own service, how your own service ensures the safety and well-being of the individual who lacks capacity, must embrace all the things that are covered under their safety and well-being holistically. You look at that whole picture. Yeah. Okay. So for the next 9 minutes of our session, I want to open it up to you. If you have any question or you have any contribution to make, yes, feel free to make it. Any question?
Hello, sir. Please, when is the deadline for the 2 assignments?
Okay, so the assignments are considered one by one. They are not considered jointly. Richard, that's a good question. So the previous assignment, the one on safeguarding, which we ended before coming on to this one. This one is our new assignment. This is model 5, and it's very simple and very straightforward. And you can see it's only 6 questions. And so that will be communicated to you by the course manager, that is Mansi. Mansi will communicate all of that to you in terms of the assignment deadline. You should have received that for model 4 somewhere last week. So please check. However, if you've not received it, I'm very sure that Mansi will inform you of that. Is it clear? Is your question answered, Richard?
What's the first one due? Yeah, thank you. So you don't know when the first one is due. They will tell us later.
It will be when you receive the assignment brief. The date will be in the assignment brief. You should have received it by now. So
okay,
that is communicated by Mansi. Yeah, it will be in the assignment brief. Yeah. As well as
thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Richard. Any other question? I think there is some message in the chat. Sarat, any question?
No, Chris.
All right.
Can I leave right now because my shift is going to start?
Okay. So if you all understand everything and there's no question, yes, I'm happy to let you go.
I have some doubts with the assignments. I will talk with Mansi. No problem.
Okay. Which one? You mean the questions?
Yeah, and the questions and all. I need to do the assignments because I'm not done anything because I have a lot of assignments from the college itself. So I couldn't really look into this one. So I need to focus on it.
It has to do with what you need to read to grasp of it.
I will talk with him.
All right, that's fine. Yes. So any other question?
No.
Okay then.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Question? I'm happy to let you go, and I'll give you 6 minutes to enjoy.
Thank you.
The sun. Let's let it come.
Bye-bye.
Is it clear as the sun is the sun?